Aloha and welcome to Java. Thank you kindly for joining me again. I would like to especially thank new viewers out there and hope that you subscribe so that you can see when these videos do come out. I'd also like to give a shout out to some of the viewers here that have just been with me and supported the channel. I would like to thank Alan Greenspan for creating another profile and coming back so that you can join us again. And also a shout out to Stephanie and Lance for just all of your support, as well as Shannon. Thank you for moderating. And Randall, Billy, and Raymond, I appreciate your contributions, as well as some of the others who have just helped out tremendously. I would like to thank you all. Something new I've started, if you would leave a comment, it's called Approved Users through YouTube. And what I'm hoping is that will allow your comments to just kind of go through without YouTube shadow banning, because that is a problem. And I've missed some of your comments, and I don't like that, because if you're taking the time to comment on here, I want to be able to see them. So thank you kindly for doing that, and I'll add you in if I haven't already. So going into it, today is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. We'll start with our MMRI. Now, risk is rising, just barely below the 285 point right as I'm doing this. And that's interesting because as stocks came down the past couple of days, that risk should also drop a bit. However, it's rising. So we're going to keep an eye on the 10-year as well as the relative strength of the dollar. We're getting in some numbers today, and we'll go into a little bit more of that. But right now, stocks still under pressure. Also with the futures, we're watching the VIX is rising, and kind of a fear trade going into gold as well as oil. So oil has come up above the $85 range. We're looking at it hitting more of that 89, possibly 90, and watching for a breakout. So sentiment has declined. The Dow fell for the second session. It is a correction because now the market is finally falling in with what the Federal Reserve has been saying, that rate expectations, they're not going to cut as early as they thought. So we'll go a little bit more into that as well. We've still got, despite all of this, still in the greed area, although that has dropped quite a bit. So moving forward, this is not the huge drop. It's just a correction that, in my opinion, is needed to happen. A little bit of overdue. So going on with our calendar, we are expecting some employment numbers a bit today, but really we're looking more towards jobless claims and more reports on Friday. We are getting also the PMI, ISM, and Fed Chair Powell is going to be speaking a little bit afternoon, so we'll be watching that because they do affect what happens. A little bit about energy and commodities. Why gold prices are rising to a record high? Well, part of this, two reasons. One is that people want to increase their store of wealth, so a lot more retailers purchasing this, but not just the fear trade, but this is also rotation into commodities. So as we're seeing Brent oil futures above $89, this is also on supply risk, Middle East, everything that's going on there. We've got the wars, and then also supply issues. We've got the strategic oil reserve in the United States. Also, they've halted selling from that, trying to bolster back in, but prices are rising, and it's making it difficult for them to replace. So, watching oil prices going into an election year, I expect they're going to really attempt to control that. We've also got a new west-east route, keeping Europe hooked on Russian gas. Despite all sanctions, they are still buying Russian gas and oil. So, going into what central banks are doing a little bit more, inflation has slid in Europe, and basically this is allowing them to talk about doing their rate cuts first, and they really need to prior to the Federal Reserve. So Federal Reserve saying 3 rate cuts are reasonable right now for 2024. May even only be 2. They're not going to do them prior to June, and only if the ECB does at that time. Otherwise, they'll have to do it later. We've got euro area inflation is hitting the 2%, so they are looking at a June cut. We'll see as it gets a little bit closer how inflation looks in their numbers. PIMCO has boosted the bond bet that the Fed is going to cut less than global peers, and I think that's for the same reason that I'm talking about, is it turns into a currency and trade war, and the Federal Reserve could absolutely destroy the euro, and they really don't want that, at least not yet. So going into business and the economy, the news. There was a magnitude 7.2 earthquake hitting Taiwan. So that caused also a couple of tsunamis and other issues going on. You see this building doesn't look so great. So you're going to see this in the news, but the larger news behind it for the economy is that TSMC, this major chip manufacturer, they just ramped out production, and now they're going to have to move out of one of their major production facilities. So hitting TSMC this morning, we are also getting Tesla are going to get hit this morning because they had their worst sales report by the most ever. So that's hitting EVs in general. And we've also got, according to Moody's, office vacancy rate has spiked and now it's hitting about 20%, which is a new record. So the trouble with this is going to follow through with all of the financials as they hold the CRE, commercial real estate loans. And gonna have to watch this. We're hitting this just teetering area right now in the economy. So with all of this that looks like it's coming forward, we are hitting their solution, which is basically universal basic income. So right now under the state, we've got a couple of federal programs rolling out as well, and they're growing quietly in the background under these quote unquote pilot projects. So a showing of 82,000 Houston area residents applied for this already. This is just showing the pain already that is being felt in the economy. So less than 2,000 made it into this program. We've also got the Guaranteed Income Pilots Dashboard. So they're calling this the Stanford Basic Income Lab and Center for Guaranteed Income Research. They're saying that this is a good bolster to the economy and that it's fine to use because people are spending on their basics. Well, that's not the point. The point is that this is another way for them to distort government spending, price fixing, and also intervening in free market, which historically has never worked well. So getting people hooked on the government lines and will increase control in the future. So going a little more into the wars, global wars, the United States GDP has been bolstered by providing these weaponry to basically Middle East and also Southeast areas that are under tension. But we've also got a huge global currency wars going on. And the yen, Japanese yen, could spark a new currency war. So they're losing control. Trying to hike and strengthen it up, they are going to have to resort to other methods. And this is what they're talking about, that this could spike that war if they have to make a move with the bonds. So watching Japan for that, also watching China's property crisis because that is flaring up again. And with their real estate crisis, that could flood into United States and global markets. So country gardens not able to sell, and that is kind of heating up a bit again. So despite all of this, we've still got global trade has rebounded this year. So very positive for the markets at the moment. However, that could implode as well between all of the shipping routes having problems. We've got RBI's new rule on Forex derivatives, and I think this is not getting a lot of attention, but it's starting April 5th, and it's putting requirements as what they can do with their hedging. So going to have to keep an eye on that. Couple of lava updates. We had this story come out on testing on livestock. So this is livestock that is going to be used as meat, and it doesn't have to be reported. So one more reason to purchase local and support your local farmers. They are kind of doing more control with this. There is bird flu coming out in dairy cows, and it's very likely they're going to force a culling there. Keep an eye on this. Affecting the food supply, it's majorly not a good thing. So, the one last thing I wanted to bring up, we spoke about this before, but it's starting to happen because it's spring. So, this is talking about cicadas, the invaders from underground incoming, they're calling it Cicada-geddon, largest bug emergence in centuries. So I don't know, it could be really interesting. We're going to watch that happening. It's just a small side story, not anything that's going to affect the economy, but I just thought that would be something interesting to mention. So through all of this, I would just like to remind you there's a lot of opportunity in this. The most critical thing that we have is really each other. Build your community. Stay in, stay up to date. So thank you kindly for being here. Wishing you all a wonderful day. If you're trading, I'm wishing you green today. And also, as always, until I see you again, my friends, stay free.